Every single day, humanity takes over 5 billion photographs. Think about that for a second. We snap pictures of our food, our pets, our vacations, and our faces, casually freezing time with the devices that slip right into our pockets. But it wasn't always this easy. Before the megapixel wars, before Instagram, and long before the smartphone, capturing a single moment required toxic chemicals, heavy machinery, and an incredible amount of patience. Today, we're going to trace the history of the camera. It's a story of accidental discoveries, bitter rivalries, and human ingenuity. So, how did we go from sitting inside pitch-black rooms to holding entire photography studios in the palms of our hands? Let's go back to the very beginning. Believe it or not, the concept of the camera predates actual photography by thousands of years. It started with something called the camera obscura, which is Latin for dark room. Imagine you are standing inside a completely dark room. There's a tiny hole in one of the walls letting in a single beam of sunlight. If you look at the wall opposite the hole, you'll see a projection of whatever is outside, maybe a tree or people walking by. But here's the catch. The image is completely upside down. Ancient Chinese philosophers like Mozi noticed this around 400 BC. Later, Aristotle wrote about it, and by the Renaissance, brilliant minds like Leonardo da Vinci were using portable camera obscuras as drawing aids. Artists would trace the projected images to get perfect perspective. There was just one massive problem. The camera obscura could show an image, but it couldn't save it. Once the light was gone, the image vanished forever. Humanity needed a way to trap the light. Fast forward to the early 19th century. People started messing around with chemicals that reacted to light, primarily silver nitrate. Enter Joseph Nicephore Niepce, a French inventor. In 1826, Niepce coated a pewter plate with a type of asphalt and stuck it inside a camera obscura. He pointed it out his window and waited, for 8 straight hours. When he finally washed the plate, a faint, blurry image remained. It was a view of the buildings outside his window. It wasn't pretty, but it was revolutionary. It is widely considered the first photograph ever taken, but an 8-hour exposure time? Not exactly practical for a family portrait. That's when Louis Daguerre stepped in. Daguerre took Niepce's rough ideas and refined them. By 1839, he introduced the daguerreotype. This process reduced exposure times from hours to just a few minutes. Suddenly, photography wasn't just a science experiment. It was a phenomenon. People flocked to studios to have their portraits taken. Because exposure times were still a few minutes long, subjects had to sit perfectly still. That's why nobody smiles in old Victorian photos. Holding a smile for 3 minutes is exhausting. They even used hidden metal braces to hold people's necks in place so they wouldn't blur the photo. Despite the success of the daguerreotype, photography was still an exclusive club. It required heavy wooden boxes, fragile glass plates, and a working knowledge of toxic chemistry. It wasn't for everyday people. That all changed thanks to a bank clerk from New York named George Eastman. Eastman realized that if he could replace the heavy glass plates with something flexible, he could change the world. In 1888, he introduced a flexible roll of film and packaged it inside a simple, lightweight box camera. He called his new company Kodak. Kodak's slogan was brilliant and simple. You press the button, we do the rest. And they meant it. You bought the camera preloaded with a 100 exposure roll of film. You took your pictures, and then you mailed the entire camera back to the factory. They developed the photos, reloaded the camera, and sent everything back to you. By the year 1900, Kodak released the Brownie, a camera that cost just $1. For the first time in human history, anyone could be a photographer. It completely democratized the art of saving memories. As the 20th century roared on, cameras became smaller, faster, and much more precise. In the 1920s, a German engineer named Oskar Barnack wanted a camera he could easily carry on hikes. He invented the Leica, the first commercially successful 35mm camera. It was compact, quiet, and lightning fast. This birthed the golden age of photojournalism. Photographers like Henri Cartier-Bresson and Robert Capa could now take their cameras into the trenches of war or onto busy city streets, capturing the raw, unposed reality of the world. Then came the SLR, the single-lens reflex camera. This ingenious system of mirrors allowed the photographer to look exactly through the lens. What you saw was exactly what the film would capture. Brands like Nikon and Canon perfected this technology, and it became the gold standard for professionals for decades. But while the mechanics of the camera were being perfected, a quiet storm was brewing in a laboratory back at Kodak. The year is 1975. An electrical engineer named Steven Sasson, working for Kodak, builds a strange, Frankenstein-looking device out of a movie camera lens, some Motorola parts, and an early digital sensor. It weighed 8
In 1975,
pounds.
a breakthrough was born.
It took 23
Steven
seconds to
Sasson
record
created
a
the
single
first digital
black-and-white
camera.
image
It was a
onto
clunky,
cassette tape.
hand-built monster.
And the resolution, a staggering 0.01 megapixels. It was the world's first digital camera. When Sasson presented it to the Kodak executives, their reaction was famously short-sighted. They told him, "That's cute, but don't tell anyone about it." Kodak was making a fortune selling traditional film and chemicals. They didn't want a technology that didn't use film. It was a fatal mistake. By the late 90s and early 2000s, the digital revolution exploded. Film sales plummeted. Memory cards replaced chemical darkrooms. You could suddenly take hundreds of photos, see them instantly on a little screen, and delete the bad ones. The digital age had arrived, and it would eventually push the giants of the film era into bankruptcy. And that brings us to today. The camera has undergone its most radical transformation yet. It became invisible. It merged with our phones, backed by artificial intelligence that adjusts lighting, focus, and color in milliseconds. We now carry more photographic power in our pockets than professional studios had 20 years ago. From sitting in a dark room, waiting hours to trap a blurry shadow, to instantly beaming 4K video across the globe.